Welcome to the Discourse Analyzer AI Toolkit, where articles come alive. You're hearing the audio version of our article. For the full text and an interactive experience, check out the link in the description below. Interact with any section using our AI assistant to enhance your understanding. Let's explore.
Methodological Approaches to Pragmatics in Discourse Analysis. Methodological Approaches to Pragmatics in Discourse Analysis explores the varied methodologies used to analyze language pragmatics within social interactions. It compares the insights gained from qualitative methods, like discourse and narrative analysis, with those derived from quantitative approaches, such as corpus linguistics and experimental pragmatics. Highlighting the benefits of a mixed methods approach, the article illustrates how combining these strategies can provide a more nuanced understanding of how language functions in different contexts. It also introduces specialized approaches like ethnography of communication and conversation analysis, which delve into cultural norms and conversational mechanics, respectively. The article further discusses critical discourse analysis for its role in examining power dynamics through language, and corpus-based approaches for their empirical analysis of language use patterns. This introduction sets the stage for a comprehensive examination of the tools available for pragmatic discourse analysis and their application in real-world scenarios. 1. Methodological approaches to pragmatics in discourse. Qualitative versus quantitative methods. In pragmatics, the study of how context influences language use and interpretation, both qualitative and quantitative methodologies offer valuable insights. These methodological approaches enable researchers to explore the intricate ways in which language functions in social interactions, though they do so from different perspectives and with different tools. 1. Qualitative methods in pragmatics. Qualitative methods in pragmatics focus on in-depth analysis of language use, seeking to understand the underlying meanings, intentions, and social dynamics of discourse. These methods are interpretive, emphasizing context, and often rely on detailed case studies, ethnographic observations, and discourse analysis. Key features and applications. Discourse analysis. A common qualitative method, discourse analysis involves a detailed examination of spoken or written texts to uncover the pragmatic functions of language, such as politeness strategies, speech acts, and conversational implicatures. Ethnography of communication. This approach involves observing and participating in communication practices within specific communities to understand the cultural norms and values that underpin language use. Narrative analysis. Qualitative researchers may analyze personal stories and narratives to explore how individuals use language to construct identities and convey experiences, focusing on the pragmatic aspects of storytelling. Qualitative methods are particularly suited to exploring how meaning is negotiated in interaction, how social identities are constructed and performed, and how cultural contexts influence language use. 2. Quantitative methods in pragmatics. Quantitative methods in pragmatics involve the statistical analysis of language features to identify patterns, correlations, and potential causal relationships. These methods often rely on larger datasets and aim to provide generalizable findings about language use. Key features and applications. Corpus linguistics. Quantitative researchers may use large digital corpora to examine frequencies, collocations, and patterns of language features associated with pragmatic functions, such as modal verbs indicative of politeness levels or indirectness. Experimental pragmatics. This approach involves designing experiments to test hypotheses about language understanding and use, such as how listeners infer implicature or how different framing affects comprehension. Survey research. Surveys and questionnaires can be used to gather data on language attitudes, perceptions of politeness, and interpretations of ambiguous or indirect language across different social groups. Quantitative methods enable the identification of broad trends and patterns in language use, offering insights into the prevalence of certain pragmatic phenomena and variations across demographics or linguistic communities. 3. Combining qualitative and quantitative methods. Many pragmatics researchers advocate for a mixed methods approach, combining qualitative and quantitative analyses to leverage the strengths of both. For example, a study might begin with qualitative discourse analysis to identify key themes or phenomena and then use quantitative methods to test these observations across a larger corpus or population. Conversely, quantitative findings might be further explored through qualitative case studies to understand the mechanisms underlying observed patterns. Advantages of a mixed methods approach. Comprehensiveness. Combining methods allows researchers to achieve a more comprehensive understanding of pragmatic phenomena, capturing both the depth of individual cases and the breadth of larger trends. Validation and triangulation. Using multiple methods can help validate findings, as converging evidence from different approaches strengthens the overall conclusions. Flexibility. Researchers can tailor their methodological approach to the specific research questions and contexts, drawing on the strengths of both qualitative and quantitative methods to address complex issues in pragmatics. 2. Ethnography of communication in pragmatics and discourse analysis. Ethnography of communication is a methodological approach that integrates principles from both ethnography and linguistics to study how language functions within its cultural context. It emphasizes understanding communication as a cultural practice, exploring the ways in which individuals use language and other semiotic resources to participate in social life. This approach is particularly relevant in pragmatics and discourse analysis, as it provides deep insights into the situational, cultural, and social norms that influence language use. 1. Key concepts and methodological foundations. Developed by Del Hymes in the 1960s, the ethnography of communication is grounded in the speaking model, which stands for setting and scene, participants, ends, act sequence, key, instrumentalities, norms, and genre. This model offers a framework for systematically analyzing various components of communicative events, allowing researchers to examine how each element contributes to the meaning and function of discourse within a particular community. Setting and scene. The physical and psychological context in which communication takes place. Participants. The individuals involved in the communication process, including their roles and relationships. Ends. The purposes and goals that the communication seeks to achieve. Act sequence. The structure of the communication, including the order of actions and how they are performed. Key. The tone, manner, or spirit in which the communication is conducted. Instrumentalities. The modes and mediums of communication, including language, style, and codes used. Norms. The social rules and norms that govern the communication, including expectations for behavior. Genre. The recognized types of communicative events, such as stories, rituals, or arguments. 2. Application in pragmatics and discourse analysis. Ethnography of communication allows researchers to explore the intricate ways in which language use is embedded within cultural practices. It is particularly valuable in pragmatics and discourse analysis for several reasons. Cultural context of language use. By examining the cultural context, researchers can understand how societal norms and values shape communication practices, including politeness strategies, speech acts, and the use of silence or indirect language. Variability and diversity. This approach highlights the variability and diversity of communication practices across different communities, enabling a deeper understanding of cross-cultural communication and multilingualism. Social identity and group membership. Through ethnographic analysis, researchers can explore how language use signifies social identity and group membership, including the negotiation of power relations and the construction of in-group and out-group boundaries. 3. Methodological approaches. Ethnography of communication typically involves immersive fieldwork, where researchers participate in or observe the daily communication practices of a community. This may include participant observation, engaging with and observing the community to gather data on naturalistic communication events. In-depth interviews. Conducting interviews with community members to gain insights into their perspectives on communication practices. Recording and transcribing, collecting audio or video recordings of communicative events for detailed analysis. Document analysis, analyzing written texts, including digital communications, that are relevant to the community's communicative practices. 4. Challenges and considerations. While ethnography of communication offers rich insights into the pragmatics of language use, it also poses challenges related to fieldwork access, researcher bias, and the interpretation of data. Ethical considerations, particularly regarding consent and representation, are paramount in conducting respectful and responsible research. 3. Conversation analysis in pragmatics and discourse analysis. Conversation analysis, CA, is a methodological and analytical approach within pragmatics and discourse analysis that focuses on the detailed study of talk and interaction. It seeks to understand how participants produce and interpret conversation in social contexts, emphasizing the sequential organization of speech and its role in the construction of social action. Originating in the work of sociologists Harvey Sachs, Emanuel Shegloff, and Gail Jefferson in the 1960s and 1970s, CA has since become a foundational tool for examining the mechanics of everyday and institutional talk. 1. Core principles of conversation analysis. CA is grounded in the observation of naturally occurring conversations, rather than constructed dialogues or elicited responses. It pays close attention to the micro-details of talk, including turn-taking, repair mechanisms, pauses, overlaps, and other non-verbal cues. The core principles of CA include sequential organization, analysis of how turns at talk are organized, focusing on how each turn at talk influences the next, and how sequences of actions, e.g., question-answer, invitation-acceptance, refusal, are managed. Turn-taking mechanism. Investigation of the rules and practices governing how speakers alternate turns during a conversation, including how turns are initiated, maintained, and terminated. Repair. Examination of the ways in which speakers address problems in speaking, hearing, or understanding that arise during conversation. Preferential organization. Analysis of how certain actions are systematically preferred over others, e.g., agreement over disagreement, acceptance over refusal, in conversation, reflecting underlying social norms and values. 2. Application in pragmatics and discourse analysis. Social interaction and pragmatic competence. CA provides valuable insights into the pragmatic competence required for effective social interaction. By analyzing how participants navigate conversational norms and expectations, researchers can uncover the tacit knowledge and skills that underlie successful communication. Institutional talk. CA is particularly effective in analyzing talk in institutional settings, such as medical consultations, courtroom interactions, and classroom discourse. It helps reveal how institutional roles and relationships are constructed and negotiated through talk, and how institutional objectives are achieved or contested in interaction. Cross-cultural communication. Through the lens of CA, researchers can explore how conversational norms and practices vary across cultures, contributing to our understanding of cross-cultural communication and the potential for misunderstanding. Language development and socialization. CA is used to study language development and socialization processes, examining how children and newcomers acquire conversational norms and practices through participation and social interaction. 3. Methodological approaches. CA employs a rigorous methodology that includes the collection of audio or video recordings of naturalistic interactions, detailed transcription using a specialized notation system, and fine-grained analysis of conversational structures. This approach allows researchers to systematically uncover the underlying mechanisms of conversation, beyond what is apparent to casual observation. Transcription. CA uses a detailed transcription system that captures not only the words spoken but also paralinguistic features such as intonation, pauses, and emphasis, which are crucial for understanding conversational dynamics. Data analysis. Analysis focuses on recurrent patterns and practices within conversations, aiming to identify generalizable mechanisms of interaction rather than individual idiosyncrasies. 4. Challenges and considerations. While CA offers powerful tools for understanding interaction, it also presents challenges related to the complexity of transcription, the intensive nature of analysis, and the ethical considerations involved in recording and analyzing naturally occurring conversations. 4. Critical Discourse Analysis, CDA, and Pragmatics in Discourse Analysis. Critical Discourse Analysis, CDA, is a methodological approach that bridges linguistic analysis and social theory to examine how discourse reflects, perpetuates, or challenges social power relations, ideologies, and inequalities. While Pragmatics focuses on the context-dependent aspects of language use, CDA extends this interest to consider the broader socio-political and cultural contexts in which discourse operates. CDA and Pragmatics together offer a comprehensive lens through which to analyze the implicit meanings, intentions, and effects of discourse in society. 1. Foundations of CDA. CDA is grounded in the belief that language is a form of social practice and that discourse is a key medium through which social power is negotiated and exercised. Scholars like Norman Fairclough, Ruth Wodak, Toon A. van Dyke, and others have contributed to the development of various frameworks within CDA, each emphasizing different aspects of the relationship between discourse and society. Key principles of CDA include power and ideology in discourse, analyzing how language use reflects and reinforces social hierarchies, ideologies, and power dynamics. Historical context, considering the historical and socio-political contexts that shape and are shaped by discourse. Discursive practices, examining how discursive practices construct social identities, relationships, and institutions. 2. Integration of pragmatics and CDA. Integrating pragmatic insights into CDA involves a detailed examination of how language functions in real-world contexts to achieve specific social effects, such as persuasion, exclusion, or identity construction. This includes analysis of speech acts and politeness, how the performative aspects of language serve to assert power, mitigate threats, or perform identity. Implicature and inference, how implied meanings and inferences contribute to the implicit transmission of ideologies and the negotiation of power. Context and co-text, the role of situational, cultural, and intertextual context in shaping the interpretation and effects of discourse. 3. Applications of CDA in pragmatics. Media discourse, examining how news and media representations shape public perceptions of social issues, events, and groups, including the role of framing and narrative strategies. Political discourse, analyzing how political language constructs identities, mobilizes action, and legitimizes or delegitimizes certain policies, ideologies, or groups. Educational discourse, investigating how educational texts and interactions reproduce or challenge social inequalities and ideologies. Corporate and organizational discourse, exploring how language in corporate and organizational settings constructs professional identities, power relations, and corporate ideologies. 4. Methodological approaches. CDA employs a range of qualitative and sometimes quantitative methods, including textual analysis, detailed analysis of linguistic features such as vocabulary, grammar, and style, and their relation to social meanings and effects. Discourse historical approach, contextual analysis that combines text analysis with historical and socio-political context to understand the evolution of discursive practices. Interdisciplinary research, incorporating insights from sociology, psychology, political science, and other fields to enrich the analysis of discourse. 5. Challenges and ethical considerations. CDA faces challenges related to the interpretation of data, the potential for researcher bias, and the ethical implications of critiquing real-world discourses and participants. Researchers must navigate these challenges carefully, ensuring a balanced, rigorous, and ethical approach to discourse analysis. 5. Corpus-based approaches in pragmatics and discourse analysis. Corpus-based approaches have increasingly become a vital tool in pragmatics and discourse analysis, leveraging large collections of authentic text or speech data, corpora, to examine how language is used in real-world contexts. This methodological approach combines quantitative analysis with qualitative insights, enabling researchers to uncover patterns of language use, variations across genres or communities, and changes over time. 1. Foundations of corpus-based approaches. A corpus is a systematically organized set of natural language texts or transcriptions of spoken language. Corpora can be general or specialized, varying in size and scope, and often annotated with linguistic information such as part of speech tags or syntactic structures. Corpus-based analysis uses computational tools to search for and analyze linguistic features within these datasets, offering empirical evidence on language use. Key aspects. Authenticity. Corpora consist of authentic language use, providing a rich resource for studying language in its natural context. Representativeness. Well-designed corpora aim to be representative of the language variety or genre they encompass, allowing for generalizable findings. Quantitative and qualitative analysis. While corpus-based approaches often involve quantitative methods to identify linguistic patterns, they also support qualitative analyses of discourse features and pragmatic functions. 2. Applications in pragmatics and discourse analysis. Speech acts and politeness. Corpora allow researchers to examine how speech acts, e.g., requests, apologies, and politeness strategies are realized across different contexts and cultures, analyzing frequency, form, and function. Pragmatic markers. Analysis of pragmatic markers such as, well, you know, or actually, helps in understanding their role in organizing discourse, signaling stance, or managing turn-taking. Implicature and inference. By analyzing patterns of word use and co-occurrence, researchers can explore how implicature and inference are signaled in text, identifying conventional expressions or collocations associated with implied meanings. Genre analysis. Corpus-based methods are used to compare linguistic features across different genres or types of discourse, revealing how specific language choices contribute to genre conventions. 3. Methodological approaches. Building and analyzing corpora. Corpus compilation. The process involves collecting texts or transcriptions that meet specific criteria, ensuring the corpus is suitable for the research questions at hand. Annotation. Adding linguistic or pragmatic annotations to the corpus can facilitate more detailed analysis, though this process can be labor-intensive. Computational analysis. Utilizing software tools for corpus analysis, researchers can perform tasks such as frequency counts, keyword analysis, collocation analysis, and concordancing to examine the context of specific language uses. Combining corpus methods with other approaches, corpus-based findings often serve as a starting point for deeper qualitative analyses. For example, identifying a pattern of language use through corpus analysis may lead to detailed discourse analysis to understand the pragmatic functions of that pattern in specific contexts. 4. Challenges and considerations. Representativeness and bias. Ensuring that a corpus accurately represents the language variety or genre it purports to can be challenging. There's also a risk of selection bias influencing the findings. Interpretation. While corpus-based methods can reveal patterns of language use, interpreting these patterns in terms of pragmatic functions or social meanings requires careful analysis and consideration of context beyond the corpus data. Conclusion. The exploration of methodological approaches to pragmatics in discourse highlights the dynamic interplay between language use and the social world. From the detailed, contextual investigations of qualitative methods to the pattern-seeking analyses of quantitative approaches, researchers are equipped with a broad toolkit for delving into the nuances of communication. The ethnography of communication opens vistas into the cultural underpinnings of discourse, providing a deep dive into how communication practices are embedded within and reflective of broader societal norms and values. Conversation analysis sharpens the focus on the mechanics of interaction, offering insights into the structured nature of conversation and the social actions it accomplishes. Meanwhile, critical discourse analysis bridges the linguistic with the socio-political, uncovering the power dynamics and ideologies that pervade discourse.
Corpus-based approaches leverage digital technology to sift through vast amounts of text, illuminating patterns and trends that inform our understanding of language and use.
Together, these approaches underscore the complexity of discourse and the importance of context, culture, and power in shaping communication. The synergy of these methodologies not only enriches pragmatic analysis but also fosters a more comprehensive understanding of language as a fundamental social practice. Frequently asked questions. What are the main differences between qualitative and quantitative methods in pragmatics? Qualitative methods focus on in-depth analysis of language use, emphasizing context and seeking to understand underlying meanings and social dynamics of discourse through methods like discourse analysis and ethnography.
Quantitative methods involve statistical analysis of language features to identify patterns and correlations, often using large datasets and approaches like corpus linguistics and experimental pragmatics.
How does ethnography of communication contribute to pragmatics and discourse analysis? Ethnography of communication offers deep insights into how language use is embedded within cultural practices. By examining the cultural context, researchers can understand how societal norms shape communication practices. It highlights the variability of communication across different communities and explores language use as a means of signifying social identity and group membership.
What is the speaking model in ethnography of communication? Developed by Del Himes, the speaking model is a framework for analyzing communicative events, considering elements like setting, participants, ends, act sequence, key, instrumentalities, norms, and genre.
It helps researchers systematically analyze how each element contributes to discourse within a particular community. Can you explain the role of conversation analysis in pragmatics? Conversation analysis, CA, examines the detailed study of talk and interaction, focusing on the sequential organization of speech and its role in social action. It looks at how turns at talk are organized, the mechanisms of turn-taking, and how conversations manage repair and show preferential organization, revealing the underlying mechanics of everyday and institutional talk. How do critical discourse analysis, CDA, and pragmatics intersect? CDA examines how discourse reflects, perpetuates, or challenges social power relations, ideologies, and inequalities. When integrated with pragmatic insights, it involves a detailed examination of how language functions in contexts to achieve social effects, looking at aspects like speech acts, implicature, and context. It's focused on revealing the power dynamics and ideologies in discourse.
What is the significance of corpus-based approaches in pragmatics? Corpus-based approaches use large collections of authentic text or speech data to examine language use in real-world contexts.
This methodology enables researchers to uncover patterns of language use and variations across genres or communities, combining quantitative analysis with qualitative insights. How does the combination of qualitative and quantitative methods benefit pragmatics research? A mixed methods approach provides a more comprehensive understanding of pragmatic phenomena by capturing the depth of individual cases and the breadth of larger trends.
It allows for validation and triangulation of findings and offers flexibility in addressing complex issues in pragmatics.
What are some challenges faced in corpus-based approaches to pragmatics? Challenges include ensuring the representativeness of a corpus to accurately reflect the language variety or genre it encompasses and avoiding selection bias. Interpreting patterns of language use in terms of pragmatic functions or social meanings requires careful analysis beyond the corpus data.
Are there ethical considerations in using ethnography of communication for research? Yes, ethical considerations, particularly regarding consent and representation, are paramount. Researchers must conduct their studies in a manner that respects the rights and dignity of community members, ensuring transparency and ethical integrity in their research practices.